Right, first of all, Happy New Year. First job for 2025 on the van. A couple of people have been waiting a while for this, and it's taken me a while to get onto it. I probably should have done it sooner, but I wanted to do all the rest of the van wiring before I did this, just so I had an understanding of how to wire things up. I'm gonna tackle wiring up the front seat.
It's about damn time.
There's a couple of people who've actually bought the same seats as me, and they're waiting for me to do this job so they can follow me. So no pressure. So if you've never watched any of my videos before and you're wondering, these are 2018 Landrover Discovery HSE leather seats that I've put in my Renault Trafic. So part one of fitting these seats was, I think it was 6 months ago. It's actually part 25, episode 25. So check that out to see how I actually got them into the van and bolted them in. I actually fitted swivels to them at the same time. If you're thinking about fitting these type of seats into your van, check that video out first. They come with an armrest built in, and yeah, they're fully leather and they're fully electric. Now by fully electric I mean there's, from what I can see, there's four motors. They're heated, and there's lumbar support, so it's got those air pump things, like airbags. The main priority is to get the 4 motors working so we can position the seats where we want, so it's safe to drive and comfortable to drive. At a later date, maybe we'll look into getting the heated seats working, and I'm not really sure about the lumbar support at all. Not having any of the airbags working, because I don't trust that, to be honest. I think you've got to have the ECUs and stuff to get that to work, and I don't want them going off randomly. When I bolted them into the van, I labelled everything. So I've got motor 1 there. That controls the up and down function on the front of the seat, like the tilt on the front. Motor 3, I'm not actually quite sure what that does. That might be the tilt for the back of the seat base. Just by there, that's the motor for the forward and back of the entire seat. Around here, in there, we've got a 4th motor. Now either that is the tilt for the whole backrest, or I haven't got a clue what it does. Yeah, I've also taken the back panel off, and yeah, that's all the wiring for it. Now unfortunately we're not going to be able to use any of the original buttons and switches that come on the seats, because Land Rover make it really complicated. Bastards. Behind that is all circuit boards, and I've already taken off, they're inside the unit somewhere. They come with their own ECUs, these seats. So everything plugs into that. There's all circuit boards in there. So to get that working, well, you've got to have a Land Rover Discovery basically. So what we got to do is do away with this and use our own switches. So the location for these new switches, I'm either gonna make a panel to go in there and have the new switches situated in the same spot, or maybe we'll have them down underneath somewhere. And the switches you got to use are these style. So like off is in the middle, and then every time you stop pressing it, it reverts back to off. So that can go one way and that can go another way. It's basically the same as the electric window switches. And you've got 6 connections on the back. So the way you've got to connect it is so that it reverses the polarity, so that you can get that to go in one direction of the motor, and then that reverses it and does it in the opposite direction then. A lot of this crap we don't need, but we can't just go cutting it off willy-nilly. So we need all the plugs for the motors. So that's motor 2. So what I'll probably do is like chop it off by there, so we got plenty of wire on the end of it, and same for all the other 4 right there, just to give me plenty of. We probably don't even need half these wires, we only need 2 going into the plug as well. Right, so that's motor 2, keep that. I don't know whether I labelled number 4 because I can't really get to it. Number 3. Right, number 1. There we go. That's the stuff we need anyway. This loom goes up here and then goes through the framework and then comes out here. And I've actually snipped it. One went to this thing, which is something to do with the lumbar support. It's not even attached to anything, it's just wedged in there. It's either the pump or something to do with it, because it's got all the blue pipes going through it. So I've left enough wire on that to connect to maybe in the future, so we don't need all of this. Then where is it? This one here, pretty sure that's the heater element. So I've left that there like that. Then I've cut this one as well, that goes to something to do with the lumbar support. To be honest, I can't ever see me getting that working. Look how many wires are going into it. This wire here goes to this motor, so I'm gonna have to take some of this insulation off to try and give me some more wire before I go cutting through things. And then there's one more sneaky one behind the pad in there. I'm pretty sure that's the airbag there. So looking at the plug, it looks important. So I'm just going to disconnect that. I'm not going to cut them. Yeah, I was correct. So first of all, you have to pull this little orange thing out. I did that with a little small screwdriver, and then that's the plug for it, so it pulls downwards and out of it. Like I said, trace these wires back a little bit further so I got a bit more wire before I cut them, and then all this can just come out then. Don't need any of that now. And we got our 3 plugs there that we can connect wires to then plug into the 3 motors underneath. We got enough wire in there to connect something onto to provide power to that motor. Now underneath the seat as well, there is a plug there. I haven't got a clue what it is, so I just labelled it as rear 1, and there's another one there, rear 2 I labelled it as. I'm guessing there's something to do with the heaters. Why there's 2, I haven't got a clue. Maybe one is something to do with lumbar. Maybe there's an air pad in the actual seat base, and maybe the other one is a heat pad in the seat base. So yeah, I'm just gonna leave them for now, and if we feel like it in the future, like I said, we'll come to it. But before I go scrapping all the loom that I cut off of the seat, I'm gonna find the corresponding plugs to them, cut them off like I did for all the motor plugs, just keep them to one side, put them in a box somewhere, so then it makes it easier if I ever do want to wire them up. I've got the OEM plugs to plug into them ones. So the first thing I think I'm going to do is wire up the switches to the motors. The middle two on the switch are for the motor. So we'll have to cut a length of black wire, length of red wire. They only need to be thin stuff, so like 1.5mm cable. That's all that was on there originally. Put spade connectors on the end. I have enough length of cable there ready to connect to the cables that we cut off the original loom of the seat. Make sure we got enough there so that they're not tight or anything. The top two, doesn't matter which way, I don't think, go to your power source. So I might just connect it up to that little golf buggy battery I got to begin with before I wire it into the starter battery of the van. So the top two go to that, they give you your power, and then you've got to run 2 more wires from the top two down to the bottom two, but they got to be crossed over. Hope that makes sense. I'm gonna have a crack at it now and then show you once I've done it, and hopefully it's right. So I just had a little panic thinking, shit, I haven't got enough crimp connectors. As per usual, I don't check things first, and I found out that they come with them in the box the switches came into. So basically that's how you connect the crossover. So you got the 2 wires dangling up the top. They go to your positive and negative power source, and then you got that wire going to a crimp connector, but then there's also another wire going into the same connector which comes out of it and goes to another connector on the diagonal opposite. So yeah, there's 2 wires going into one connector and then one on the other, so that it loops over and goes diagonally opposite. So hopefully that makes sense there. And then these other 2, they're in the middle now. I'm not going to use the ones that came with the pack because I'll have to join another connector onto there otherwise. But yeah, you got the one red going there and the one black, and those 2 now bump up go to your positive and negative on the motor. But I'm going to take them off because I'm going to cut longer ones. So I have decided I'm going to put the switches here where the original switches were on the seats. So I need to work out how that pops out anyway. What I needed to do first is work out the wire lengths from here to go to each motor. So each motor is in a different place, so all the wires are going to be different. Held wire by here, and then the other end to the motor, and then cut the wires that length. So I've laid them out, and obviously you can use the one you've cut first to I did the positive first, and I can use that to cut the negative the same length then. So that's motor 1, motor 2, motor 3 is actually the closest to the switch panel, and then number 4 is the furthest away, so they're longer. So for them wires now, I just need to put connectors on one end of them, and they can go onto the switches, onto those last 2 terminals on each switch. They're in the middle. The other ends of them will then get connected to those plugs that I chopped off the original looms. To help me, I've labelled the switches. So that's number 1, and I've got number 1's wires here. So I've already put a connector on the end of the negative wire that goes to the motor. So if you've got the 2 wires at the top there, then this one goes on the right. And now we'll do the same for the positive, and then pop that onto the remaining connector on the switch. That's 1 switch wired up. Now to do the other 3.
A few moments later.
And there we go. 4 switches all identically wired up. So now the next thing is to connect some more wire onto the blue ones, and then also connect the plugs that we cut off the loom onto the red and black wires. So obviously they're labelled, so connect them up to the right switch. Time to test it out. We got the little golf battery there. We got the red and the black wires going to some Wago connectors at the moment. And then, I don't know whether we can see it, but there is the plug that we cut off the loom, and it's plugged into the motor now. We got the wires coming from the battery. They go to some Wago connectors that go to the blue wires on the switch. Now I don't know how much charge is in this battery, so it might move slowly. Yeah, boy! It is slowly. And back the other way. Right, well, it's working. Right, we've tested what I labelled as motor number 2. This is motor number 3. It's a weird order, but... So that's... Yeah, raises... This doesn't tilt the backrest, it does the height of the whole seat actually. Next one is motor number 1. I'm not sure what this is going to do. I reckon tilt the front. Yeah. Right, we're inside now to test out number 4. I'm hoping that this is the tilting of the backrest. Here goes. Yay! Right, it's another day and my connectors have turned up. So I got it's the male and female are just the spade type. So what I've done now is take all the Wago connectors off of my little switch looms that where they connect onto the motors, the original OEM plugs. I've swapped out the Wagos for the spade connectors, so it's a bit more, slightly more permanent, not totally permanent like, but a bit more permanent than them, and now I can reuse them again. That's the beauty of Wago connectors. Also, the driver's side seat is identical to the passenger one now, so I've taken the back off, trimmed out all the wiring that I don't need. Motor number 4 is connected up there. I just need to insulation tape that, which I have done on the passenger one, and I've started putting bits and bobs back on again. And also on the driver's side seat, motors 1, 2 and 3 have all got their switches there. Right, so I got the multimeter out and obviously put the ignition on and put the pins, well, tried to get them into this plug that's sticking out the floor of the van. It's for the seat belt, whatever you call that bit. There's 4 wires coming out of that one, but 6 wires going into that plug. So I thought, oh, maybe 2 of them are redundant. They're for like a higher spec van, or I haven't got a clue. So I thought, oh, maybe I can splice into them then. But I don't know whether it's the van battery is still low. They're every colour bar black and red. So I didn't really know which was positive and negative, to be honest. I couldn't get a tidy reading off them, and I couldn't really get the pins off the multimeter into it as well very good. So I think I'm not going to bother with that. Plus, I'm pretty sure, let me know in the comments, if your car or van has electric seats as standard, do they only work when the ignition is on, or do they work all the time? Because I'm pretty sure my Beamer in there works even with the ignition off. I think what I'm going to do, I'm not gonna bother with that. I'm just going to route it straight to the battery But if I can, I might have an on and off switch to cut the power to the seat. To do that plan now, all these blue wires on all these switches, I now have to connect them up to the battery. So what I'll probably do is use a big Wago connector, join all the I'll have to connect wires onto the ends of these to make them longer, connect all the positives together, connect all the negatives together into a Wago, and then have just one wire coming out of them going to the battery, because you don't want bloody 16 wires going into the battery compartment, do we? Right, so I've just made some extensions to connect onto the ends of the blue wires to make them longer. I've just used the spade connectors to connect onto the blue wires there to make them longer. Obviously there's gonna be people who go, you should use solder, you should use this, you should use that. Well, this is the way I'm doing it. Do whatever the hell you want, as long as they're connected and there's no bare metal bits touching things that they shouldn't do. I'm gonna insulation tape these afterwards as well. Yeah, that's the main thing. And as long as these don't come off as well. Then I'm gonna connect them all up to a 5-slot Wago connector. Basically acts as kind of a bus bar, but a quick release bus bar, because if you ever need to do something and take something off, take a seat out or whatever, then at least you don't have to get any tools out and stuff. You can just flip these levers up, pull the wires out, and off you go. Then I'm gonna have one wire coming out of that, and that will be going to the battery then. And because we got swivel bases, we need to route them so that they don't get tangled when we turn them. There's actually holes in the dead center of the swivels. So I think if I route the wires through there, that'll stop them getting tangled. I've connected all them up now to the 5 connector Wago, and I've put a positive and a negative coming out of them to the battery, and at the moment I've just got it clamped to the battery terminals, and I've cable tied everything so neat and tidy. I'll show you that in a mo, but let's just make sure it's all working. Right, that's switch number 1, back and forth. It's going a bit faster now because it's connected up to the starter battery. Number 3, up and down. Number 4 does the backrest. I've cabled them to the top. They go to those Wago connectors there, and then the 2 wires come out of them, and there they are, and they go through the center of the swivel, and then they are coming out the bottom, and I just got them clamped to the battery at the moment. And then all the other wires are cable tied, and they go to each and every motor. So yeah, I've tried to have them so they're not dangling and, you know, fouling on anything. One thing I had to contend with that I didn't think of until afterwards, the main red and black wire here, obviously I had to have enough slack on that for the where motor number 2 is, by there, this bar that's going across. Obviously if you slide the seat forward enough, it's gonna hit these red and black cables and yeah, go over the top of them. So I had to have enough slack there on these so that it didn't pull them out or anything. We've got to have a proper crimped end to connect those wires to the battery, but before that I'm going to put a switch in. Probably the same switch as I got on the interior lights, just an on and off, and we'll have that mounted underneath there somewhere. And I gotta have a fuse in it just in case the worst to happen. I want a switch so that just for safety reasons, so that, you know, when you're not wanting to adjust them, you can turn it off and there's no power going to the seat. because it's a permanent live. Another reason I thought of afterwards that it's good to have a permanent live on them, because they're swivels, you're going to want to swivel them around, and then they might not going to be in the position you want them, so you're going to want to like adjust the seats once you turn them around. You're not going to be wanting to run around to the driver's side, put the key in the ignition, or lean across and try and find the ignition barrel and put the key in. You're not going to want to do that every time, so all you got to do is turn the seat around, flick a switch, and then adjust the seat if whatever you want to do, and then turn it off again. Then some people might not want that, they might have other ideas, but it sounded the best solution for me. Now we got the driver's seat the same as the passenger seat. I do have to test out the swivels as well, just so that it doesn't actually shear through the wires. One little thing to point out as well, you see by there, these little tiny little wires, they're coming out of the plugs that we snipped off the seat looms. For some reason there's 4 wires going into each plug, but we only need 2, so these ones need to be cut off at the plug, and then I'll put some insulation tape off it. So the switch I'm going to use is, well, it's exactly the same as the ones I use for the light switches for the interior lights. And there's the side panel off the seat. So I'm thinking, have it there, because there's only certain places we can have it, because you got lugs and stuff on the inside, and then obviously you got to be mindful of where the metal work and stuff is behind that. There's no good putting it into a place that then right behind it is a lump of metal. And then the positive cable that comes from the Wago connector, I'll have to cut short, connect it to this, and then another one coming from this to the battery. And there they are fitted. So you can see on the back there's nothing around that can foul on the wires. And I checked the seats as well, so there's no metal work in the way. It hasn't been a good morning, I'll tell you that now. Schoolboy error. So I cut all that out of that module thing. I cut my switch plates and I bonded them on as well, so I've had to take that off now and I've got it all over my hands. Didn't check where the backs of the switches would end up in correlation with the seat, and yeah, there's all plastic that's mounted to the side of the seat in the way, so they can't go there. And if you're wondering how the original Landrover switches were there, well, it's only that wide as this plastic, and yeah, the plug goes into it, whereas my switches were coming out to about there. So probably about 4 hours work for nothing. So they're gonna have to go underneath, or in between your legs kind of thing, down there, and I'm gonna I could have left all that in and cut a panel to just blank off the original holes. So I'm gonna have to make 2 of them shapes again, minus the holes, to blank that off. And now I gotta figure out, I'm not cutting another 2 of these again, cutting those 4 holes out. They took ages, so I'm gonna use them. So now these can go back on now permanently. As you can see, the seat is facing the other way and it still all works. It hasn't yanked anything out. It works as it should. So basically there's a hole in the middle of the swivel. The power and the earth cables go through that, and basically as you turn the seat round, they just go like that.
Hey baby.
And they don't snag on anything. Put insulation tape around every single connector. Now, if we try and push the buttons without the switch on, it doesn't nothing happens. Flick the switch. And the seat goes back. Yeah, and everything works. And I think I mentioned it, I wanted to put a fuse in, so obviously it's a new thing coming off of the battery, a new like loom, so you've got to have protection just in case something shorts out. So I've put a fuse in there. It's just a little spade holder fuse blocky thing. So and we got a fuse in there, and then you put the top on it, and I can't actually get the top on. Tuck that down in there now. So the positive and negative cables come down through the swivel, down there. They go through the rubber matting where the original loom comes out of, the van loom. They go through the floor of that. They go through that hole along there, and then I've cable tied them to the big cables for the battery to battery start charger, and then yeah, they come into the battery compartment. Then same for the driver's side seat. It obviously follows a different route, but still joins up the same by here. I did mention in the, I think it was a video that I put the battery to battery charger in and put the cables by here, that I got the cables into the battery compartment the easiest way I could, without having to drill holes and stuff. So I did shape the battery compartment cover with a little hump in it. So I will be putting some conduit over the cables there to protect them, and then this just goes over the top of them. Then it's easier than flipping drilling holes in the floor and having to put some bloody epoxy primer on it and all that, and at least you can get to them easy enough then. And to work out the size of the fuse, I had to Google it. I think I found motors online off of Range Rover seats, so it's bound to be the same ones. They're not very big, and they were something like 4.3 amps each, or 4.2, something like that. So obviously 4 on each sheet. I added it up and it came to 18 amps dead, so I've stuck a 20 amp fuse in there, so that should be plenty. And just to show the driver's side seat working too, so I flick the switch. It's a bit inconvenient at the moment because the switches are dangling down, so hopefully I can get them into a position that is comfortable, so you can judge where you want the seat while you're pushing the buttons. So let's try the forward. There you are, going forward now and back. Let's do the backrest. Yeah, all working. Happy days. So I was actually gonna pay the electricians in the yard to do this for me. This was prior to me wiring up the entire van. So doing the entire van has now given me the skill to do this and do it right. There's probably going to be someone saying you didn't do it right, but yeah, I wouldn't have had a clue how to do this before wiring up the van, and it was pretty simple, to be honest. The hardest part was like routing the wires and making sure you got enough wire length and stuff. And obviously the time consuming part of it was just putting no ends of connectors on bits of wire. But yeah, once you know how to wire up one switch and connect it to one motor, you're sorted, because then you just do the same for 7 more switches, and obviously using the OEM Landrover plugs makes it far easier. I definitely recommend testing it out with some kind of spare battery, whether it be a car battery or just a little like lithium one I got one off a golf buggy. Test it out with that, make sure everything's working, and then once you know it is, then you can go and take the steps to wire it up permanently to your starter battery. Make sure you have enough connectors, heat shrinks, wire, have all of that handy before you start it, because otherwise it doesn't matter so much with me because my van's not on the road yet. But if your van's is on the road, then and you don't have enough connectors, then your job's going to take longer than you first think. Ultimately, make sure all your connections are safe. Make sure they have the little see-through sheaths over them. Insulation tape over joins. If you use different kind of connectors that require heat shrink, make sure they're heat shrinked. Make sure no wires that aren't meant to be touching, make sure they're not touching. Yeah, just make sure there's no arcing out. Make sure every bare metal bit is covered. Make sure everything's crimped properly so nothing can pull apart as well. Just do everything and then check over everything afterwards to make sure everything is safe. If you've got any questions at all on how I fitted these seats out of a Discovery in my Renault Trafic, whether it be bolting them in or wiring them up, pop them in the comments. And like I said at the start of the video, part 1 is all about just fitting them into the van, bolting them in and fitting the swivels, so check that out as well. Any parts and tools I've used in this video, I'll pop the links for them in the description. I think what I'm going to do is a part 3 on this project as well for these seats, and that'll be what I finally decide to do for the switches, where I'm going to mount them, and also I still have to do the seatbelt receivers. So yeah, I'll do a part 3. It'll be much shorter than part 1 and part 2. I'll try and do that quite soon. We won't let it be another 6 months down the line. So yeah, I think that's about it. Click on the subscribe button. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.